It was a cold October evening when the Collins family arrived at Pinecrest Manor. The old estate, nestled deep in the woods of New England, had been in their family for generations, but they had only recently decided to move in permanently. As the van approached the manor, its looming silhouette cast long shadows across the overgrown lawn. The mansion was a relic of a bygone era, with its tall, narrow windows and a turret that seemed to pierce the twilight sky. Sarah Collins, the matriarch of the family, took a deep breath, trying to ignore the chill that seemed to seep into her bones. "This is it, everyone," she said, forcing a smile. "Our new home." Her husband, Mark, glanced at her with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "It's going to be great, Sarah, just a little work to get it back in shape." Their teenage children, Emily and Jake, were less enthusiastic. Emily, who had always been more in tune with her surroundings, stared at the manor with a look of unease. "I don't know, Mom. It looks a bit creepy." Jake, the adventurous one, shrugged. "Come on, Em. It's just an old house. What's the worst that could happen?" As they unloaded the van and carried their belongings into the mansion, the air grew colder. An unusual stillness hung over the property, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. The grand entrance hall was as magnificent as it was intimidating, with its high ceilings, ornate chandeliers, and intricate woodwork. It felt as though the house had been waiting for them, its silence heavy with secrets. While the family settled in, Sarah and Mark explored the ground floor, discussing plans for renovation. Emily and Jake ventured upstairs to pick out their rooms. The second floor was as grand as the first, with long corridors lined with closed doors, each one leading to a room that was a snapshot of a bygone era. Emily's room was at the end of the hall overlooking the garden. As she stepped inside, she felt a sudden drop in temperature. The room seemed oddly preserved, with antique furniture and a four-poster bed that looked as though it hadn't been touched in decades. Emily ran her fingers over the dust-covered dresser, shivering slightly. Jake's room was a little farther down the hall. It was smaller, but had a view of the woods. He threw his backpack onto the bed and began unpacking, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling that had settled over him. As he moved around, he noticed a large, ornate mirror on the wall. It was covered with a dusty sheet, but Jake could see his reflection faintly through the fabric. Downstairs, the parents were busy in the kitchen trying to make it more livable. The old appliances and cabinets creaked with every movement, and the once grand room now seemed draped in a veil of sadness. Mark was in the middle of arranging the pots and pans when he heard a strange noise upstairs, a series of heavy footsteps that seemed to echo through the house. He paused, listening carefully, but the sound had already stopped. "Sarah, did you hear that?" he called out. Sarah, who was struggling with a stubborn cabinet door, looked up. "Hear what, Mark?" "Never mind," Mark said, shaking his head. "Probably just the house settling." But as the evening wore on, the eerie feeling only grew stronger. The house, which had seemed so charming at first, now felt as though it was closing in on them. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed darker, and every creak of the floorboards was magnified. That night, as the Collins family retired to their rooms, none of them could shake the feeling of being watched. The old manor, with its secrets and its silence, seemed to come alive in the darkness. And as the first night at Pinecrest Manor drew to a close, an unsettling question lingered in the air. What exactly was waiting for them in the shadows? The Collins family woke the next morning feeling uneasy. The strange occurrences from the previous night were dismissed as the creaks and groans of an old house adjusting to new occupants. But as the day progressed, the eerie feeling continued to linger, gnawing at the edges of their minds. Sarah tried to focus on unpacking and organizing the house, determined to make it feel like home. She worked tirelessly, but the oppressive atmosphere of Pinecrest Manor seemed to weigh heavily on her. Every so often she would catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of her eye, or hear a faint whisper that was gone before she could pinpoint its source. Emily spent most of the day exploring the mansion. She wandered through the rooms, examining old photographs and heirlooms left behind by previous occupants. In one of the upstairs rooms, she found a dusty trunk filled with old letters and journals. The faded writing revealed stories of a once wealthy family whose members had mysteriously disappeared. The more Emily read, the more she felt a sense of dread. The stories spoke of strange noises, disappearing items, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Meanwhile, Jake had decided to explore the grounds around the manor. He ventured into the overgrown garden and the surrounding woods, hoping to escape the unsettling atmosphere inside. As he walked deeper into the forest, he noticed strange symbols carved into the trees and remnants of what appeared to be old, abandoned structures. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching him from the shadows. That night, the Collins family gathered in the living room, trying to shake off the strange occurrences of the past 24 hours. They chatted about their day and tried to make light of the situation, but the conversation kept drifting back to the unsettling feeling that had settled over the house. As they prepared for bed, Emily found herself unable to sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the creaks and groans of the old manor. The whispering wind outside seemed to carry voices, and every now and then, she thought she heard footsteps echoing through the empty halls. In the middle of the night, Emily was jolted awake by a loud crash. She quickly got out of bed and crept down the hall, her heart pounding in her chest. The noise seemed to be coming from the attic. With trembling hands, she pulled down the attic ladder and climbed up into the dark, dusty space. The attic was filled with old furniture, boxes, and cobwebs. Emily's flashlight illuminated the room, revealing old portraits of the manor's former inhabitants. As she scanned the room, she noticed a small door in the corner, partially hidden behind a stack of boxes. It looked out of place, almost as though it didn't belong. With a mixture of curiosity and fear, Emily approached the door and slowly opened it. Beyond the door was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. She hesitated for a moment before descending the stairs, her flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls. The staircase led to a small, hidden room. Inside, Emily found a dusty old diary lying on a pedestal. The diary was bound in leather, and the pages were filled with frantic scrawls and drawings. As she flipped through the pages, she realized that the diary belonged to a woman named Eleanor, who had lived in the manor over a century ago. The entries in Eleanor's diary spoke of strange occurrences and terrifying visions. Eleanor described seeing shadowy figures and hearing ghostly whispers. She wrote about feeling as though she was being followed and watched by an unseen presence. The final entry was a desperate plea for help, written in shaky handwriting. Emily's heart raced as she read the final lines. Eleanor had written, "They are coming for me. I can't escape. I hear them every night, whispering my name. They want something, but I don't know what." The diary was abruptly cut off, leaving Emily with a chilling sense of foreboding. She knew she had to tell her family about what she had discovered, but the thought of facing the unknown terrors of Pinecrest Manor filled her with dread. As she made her way back up the stairs, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. The shadows seemed to shift and move on their own, and the whispers grew louder. She hurried back to her room, her mind racing with questions and fears. That night, as the Collins family tried to sleep, they were haunted by the echoes of Eleanor's diary. The house seemed to come alive with the restless spirits of the past, and the presence that lurked in the shadows grew stronger. Pinecrest Manor was no longer just an old house. It had become a place of terror and mystery, and the Collins family was trapped in its web of fear. The next morning, the Collins family gathered in the kitchen for breakfast. The mood was somber, and the unease that had settled over them the previous night seemed to hang in the air like a thick fog. Sarah and Mark exchanged worried glances, while Emily and Jake remained silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Emily decided it was time to share what she had discovered in the attic. As she told her family about the diary and its disturbing entries, the room fell silent. Sarah and Mark listened with growing concern, while Jake's expression changed from curiosity to disbelief. "That's quite a story, Emily," Mark said finally, "but it's probably just an old tale. The diary could be the work of someone with a vivid imagination." Sarah nodded in agreement. "We've been through a lot of changes recently. It's natural to feel a bit unsettled. let's not jump to conclusions. Despite their attempts to rationalize the situation, the Collins family couldn't ignore the feeling that something was very wrong. They decided to take a break from unpacking and explore the mansion further, hoping to find clues that might explain the strange occurrences. As they explored the house, they discovered more hidden rooms and secret passages. The mansion was filled with hidden compartments, concealed doors, and mysterious artifacts. The more they uncovered, the more they realized that Pinecrest Manor was a labyrinth of secrets. In one of the hidden rooms, they found a collection of old photographs and documents related to the manor's history. The documents revealed that Pinecrest Manor had been the site of several tragic events over the years, including disappearances and unexplained deaths. One document in particular caught their attention. It was a letter addressed to a person named Eleanor, dated from the early 1900s. The letter was filled with cryptic language and references to a dark presence that had been haunting the manor for years. It mentioned a ritual that was supposed to protect against the malevolent force, but had been interrupted before it could be completed. As they read the letter, the Collins family began to piece together the history of Pinecrest Manor. It became clear that the house had been plagued by a malevolent presence for generations. The spirits of those who had suffered there seemed to linger, their restless souls trapped in the manor's shadows. That night, as the family prepared for bed, they felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The atmosphere in the house grew heavier, and the whispers in the darkness grew louder. The presence that had been lurking in the shadows seemed to grow more intense, and the Collins family could no longer ignore the fact that they were being watched. Emily, unable to sleep, decided to return to the attic to investigate further. She felt a strange pull, as though something was calling her to the hidden room. As she descended the stairs once again, she felt a chill run down her spine. The small room with the diary was just as she had left it. The diary lay on the pedestal, its pages open to the final, frantic entry. Emily felt a shiver of fear as she realized that the final entry had changed. The handwriting was now more frantic, and the words seemed to be written in a different hand. The new entry read, "They are coming for me. They are coming for all of us. We must complete the ritual or be doomed to suffer forever." Emily's heart raced as she realized that the malevolent presence was not just a ghost. It was a force that sought to claim the souls of those who entered Pinecrest Manor. The ritual mentioned in the diary was the key to escaping its grasp, but it was incomplete. Desperate to find a solution, Emily began searching the room for more clues. She found a hidden compartment behind the pedestal, containing a collection of old, worn-out books. The books were filled with ancient symbols and instructions for performing the ritual. With trembling hands, Emily read through the books, trying to piece together the instructions for the ritual. She knew that time was running out, and the presence in the house was growing stronger by the minute. The Collins family was trapped in Pinecrest Manor, and the only way to escape its malevolent grasp was to complete the ritual and put the restless spirits to rest. As she worked, the shadows in the room seemed to close in around her. The whispers grew louder and the temperature dropped. Emily could feel the presence of the malevolent force, and she knew that she was running out of time. When she finally finished piecing together the ritual, she felt a sense of dread and determination. She knew that the Collins family had to perform the ritual to escape the house's grip. But would they be able to overcome their fears and confront the malevolent presence before it was too late? The night was filled with tension and terror as the Collins family prepared for the final confrontation. Pinecrest Manor had become a battleground between the living and the dead, and the outcome would determine the fate of the Collins family. The secrets of Pinecrest Manor were about to be unveiled, and the Collins family would have to face the darkness that had haunted them since the moment they arrived. The haunting at Pinecrest Manor was far from over, and the final confrontation would determine their fate. As the Collins family gathered in the grand hall, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation and fear. The house seemed to hum with a dark energy, and the shadows appeared to dance ominously along the walls. Emily held the ancient books tightly in her hands, her heart pounding as she prepared to lead her family in the ritual that might save them, or doom them forever. Mark, Sarah, and the kids looked to Emily with a mixture of hope and trepidation. They had seen enough to believe that something malevolent was at work in Pinecrest Manor. Mark took a deep breath and nodded to his family. "We're in this together. Let's do it." Emily began reciting the incantations from the ancient books, her voice trembling but resolute. The words echoed through the hall, filling the space with a sense of foreboding. As she spoke, the shadows in the room seemed to grow darker and more restless, and the temperature continued to drop. Sarah lit candles around the room, creating a circle of flickering light. The soft glow illuminated the eerie faces and the portraits hanging on the walls, their eyes seeming to follow the family's every move. The whispers that had haunted them for days grew louder, a cacophony of ghostly voices that seemed to be closing in on them. Jake and Emily arranged the ritual artifacts according to the instructions in the books. They placed symbols and offerings in specific locations around the room, hoping that the ritual would be enough to placate the restless spirits and banish the malevolent force. As the ritual progressed, the house seemed to respond with increasing intensity. The walls creaked and groaned, and a howling wind surged through the manor, rattling the windows and doors. The shadows in the room twisted and writhed, as though trying to break free from the confines of the house. Emily's voice grew stronger as she continued the incantations, her determination unwavering despite the growing chaos around her. She could feel the presence of the malevolent force more acutely than ever, its anger palpable in the cold air. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the manor, followed by a guttural roar that seemed to shake the very foundation of the house. The Collins family held their ground, refusing to be intimidated by the supernatural force that was fighting against them. As Emily reached the climax of the ritual, the house seemed to convulse in response. The shadows grew darker, and the whispers reached a deafening crescendo. Emily's voice was barely audible over the cacophony of sound, but she pressed on, determined to complete the ritual. With one final powerful incantation, Emily finished the ritual. The room was instantly filled with a blinding light, and the shadows seemed to retreat, their oppressive presence dissipating. The howling wind stopped abruptly, and the temperature in the room began to rise. The Collins family stood in stunned silence, their hearts racing as they looked around the now quiet room. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over them for days had lifted, and the house felt different, lighter somehow, as though a great weight had been lifted. Emily, exhausted but relieved, looked at her family. "I think it's over. The ritual worked." The Collins family slowly began to relax, their fear giving way to a cautious optimism. They knew that Pinecrest Manor had been a place of great darkness, but they had faced the malevolent force and emerged victorious. As they settled into their rooms that night, the Collins family felt a sense of peace that had eluded them since their arrival. The whispers had stopped, and the shadows that had once seemed so threatening now appeared benign. Pinecrest Manor was no longer a place of terror. It was a home. The secrets that had once haunted its halls had been uncovered, and the restless spirits had been put to rest. The Collins family had faced the darkness and emerged stronger for it. The haunting at Pinecrest Manor had come to an end, and the Collins family could finally rest easy, knowing that they had conquered the evil that had plagued their home. In the days that followed the ritual, the Collins family worked to restore Pinecrest Manor to its former glory. The oppressive atmosphere that had once shrouded the house had lifted, and the mansion felt like a place of peace rather than fear. The whispers and shadows that had haunted them were gone, and the family could finally begin to enjoy their new home. Sarah and Mark focused on repairing and redecorating the house, eager to put the traumatic events behind them. Emily and Jake continued to explore the manor, but now their explorations were filled with a sense of excitement and curiosity rather than dread. One afternoon, as Emily was cleaning out the attic, she came across a hidden compartment she hadn't noticed before. Inside, she found a collection of old photographs and documents related to the manor's history. Among the items was a letter from Eleanor, the woman whose diary had played a crucial role in the ritual. The letter was addressed to a friend and detailed Eleanor's relief after the ritual had been completed. Eleanor wrote about her experiences with the malevolent presence and expressed her gratitude to those who had helped her in her time of need. The letter ended with a hopeful note, stating that the darkness had been banished and that the manor could finally be at peace. Emily shared the letter with her family, and they felt a sense of closure, knowing that their actions had brought peace to the spirits of Pinecrest Manor. The letter served as a reminder of the sacrifices made and the courage displayed in the face of terror. As the weeks turned into months, the Collins family settled into their new life at Pinecrest Manor. They hosted gatherings and made memories, their home now a place of joy and warmth. The once foreboding mansion had been transformed into a haven, a testament to the family's resilience and strength. Though the horrors of the past remained a part of their history, the Collins family had emerged from the darkness with a renewed sense of hope and optimism. Pinecrest Manor was no longer a place of nightmares. It was a symbol of triumph over evil and the power of the human spirit. The story of Pinecrest Manor became a legend in the local community, a tale of bravery and perseverance in the face of unimaginable odds. The mansion, once known for its dark secrets, was now celebrated as a beacon of hope and a reminder that even the darkest of places could be illuminated by the light of courage and determination. And so, the Collins family lived out their days in Pinecrest Manor, their lives forever changed by the haunting they had overcome. The echoes of the past were now a distant memory, and the mansion stood as a testament to their victory over the malevolent forces that had once sought to claim them. The haunting at Pinecrest Manor was over, but the legacy of the Collins family's bravery lived on, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and courage could